Happy New Year, ladies and gentlemen, and a late Merry Christmas as well. 2025 is coming to a close, and I was blessed with the opportunity to go on 3 different trips this year, visiting 5 new amusement parks and gaining over 35 new coaster credits, including some of my all-time bucket list coasters. And today, we are going to be stacking these coasters up against each other and look at my top 10 new credits of 2025. Now, having to trim this collection of roller coasters down to a list of 10 was a little difficult because I'd have to cut out some really good roller coasters. So, to start out this list, we are going to go through some honorable mentions. Beginning with Hurricane at Fun Spot Atlanta. Now, hold on. Before you click off the video, I promise that the standard of roller coasters will go up in this video. Let me just explain this one. So, visiting Fun Spot Atlanta for the first time, all the hype, as you can expect, was for ArieForce One, which you'll hear more on that later. But we definitely didn't want to miss out on this coaster credit. It's an old ENF Miller family coaster with a pretty standard layout, and the first few drops and turns about meet the eye of this janky compact family coaster. However, that is before the second half, where you enter a series of demented, sharp 180-degree turns and a bunch of oddly profiled airtime pops that absolutely throw you into the unorthodox trains and restraints. You're going through these elements at a speed that feels like it's going to rip this thin, profiled track completely apart. The sheer chaos that we were experiencing had me and my entire party hollering of laughter the entire ride. And to complete the experience, we went on it 3 more times after that before we had to catch our flight. This experience as a whole was extremely fun and memorable, and it just elevated my opinion of this coaster, and I wanted to add it into this list. Heading on over to our next honorable mention is a roller coaster of the stature that you would more expect given the title of this video. It's Apollo's Chariot at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. Now, this was the world's first B&M hypercoaster, and I was really excited to get on it, as now that I've been on almost all the B&M hypers, I can kind of compare them more and more, and this coaster did not disappoint. It's an airtime-packed machine set, sort of isolated in the woods, and it gives fantastic night rides. The pre-drop section didn't give as much airtime as I expected, especially compared to Raging Bull at Six Flags Great America. And in general, I felt the airtime to be a lot stronger at the front of the train, as well as the forces on that helix midway through the ride. The more I rode Apollo's Chariot, the more it grew on me. However, I wouldn't say that it impressed me as much as the other roller coasters on this list. However, it still is a world-class roller coaster, but not among my top favorites. Staying in the same park for our last honorable mention is Griffon, the B&M dive coaster, which was the first to open in the United States. Now, throughout 2025, my opinion of dive coasters has shifted dramatically. I initially thought they were extremely overrated, especially with Valravn being at my home park and the line for that usually being way too long to wait for how good of a ride it actually is. But riding it more and more, along with Yukon Striker and now this absolute beast of a roller coaster, has totally changed my opinion. I started to appreciate what they do well, and Griffon has lots to admire. With the ride having the original and roomier B&M looping restraints, the forces are super intense on this one, especially at the bottom of the drop, and the entire ride experience is totally elevated by having the original roomier B&M restraints, unlike Valravn and Yukon Striker, which support the vest restraints. I didn't think they had as great of an effect on SheiKra when I last rode it, which I only got 1 ride on, but Griffon definitely lived up to the expectations, and I love this roller coaster, and it barely misses out on the top 10 for this year. And without further ado, we are heading into my 10th favorite new credit of 2025, and that is Siren's Curse at Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. Taken right from the hands of Six Flags Over Mexico, and skipping Circuit Breaker in line to claim the title of the first tilt coaster in North America, Siren's Curse had every coaster enthusiast saying words they thought would never come out of their mouths. Cedar Point's getting a Vekoma? But with rapid improvements in their design during recent years, this Vekoma tilt coaster brought a totally new ride experience to Cedar Point, and in multiple ways. I was not entirely sure what to expect with the tilt mechanism, but the first drop on Siren's Curse is fantastic. Unlike anything on any roller coaster I've been on, the train being held in place before all of the weight drops at once provides a similar feeling of fear and anticipation that you'd get on a drop tower, which is a rush of adrenaline that I absolutely love. The rest of the ride is mainly focused on airtime pops, whether it be slight ejector or strong floater, with a couple of weightless inversions thrown in there as well. Now, not only is the coaster's first drop a new experience, but this is the first roller coaster at Cedar Point to really have a decent amount of theming, along with onboard lighting and onboard audio. Siren's Curse is not the most intense coaster, but it's a well-rounded, glossy smooth roller coaster that is a must-ride anytime visiting Cedar Point. Heading back down to Virginia for my number 9 new credit of the year is Alpengeist, the world's tallest inverted coaster. I think it's definitely debatable on whether Griffon, Apollo's Chariot, or Alpengeist is the superior coaster among those three, but if there's one thing you know about me, it's that I absolutely love B&M inverts. I love the mind-numbing positive G-forces, the snappy transitions on the inversions and swooping turns, especially in the back seat. And because Alpengeist is so tall, these feelings I mentioned are completely elevated above any other inverted coaster that I've ridden. The twisted drop is great, the Immelman and vertical loop are fantastic, and I absolutely love the Cobra roll on this roller coaster. It's absolutely enormous, very tight, and in the back row it absolutely flails you around in the air. I've heard in a lot of reviews that people think that the mid-course brake run on this roller coaster is a bit of a buzzkill and makes the end of the ride a little slow, but during my visit, the mid-course brake run didn't even make us come close to a stop, and the end of the ride was great in my opinion. Forceful, and we did hit the brake run with decent speed. As someone who rates B&M inverts super highly and is very critical of them, Alpengeist I think has to be crowned as my favorite inverted coaster ever. Heading on down to Six Flags Over Georgia, Goliath is my 8th favorite new credit of 2025, and newly crowned as my favorite B&M hypercoaster. Now, leading up to my trip to Atlanta, I was way more focused on the RMC coasters that we were planning on riding, like ArieForce One and Twisted Cyclone, and Goliath actually flew under my radar a little bit. Now, I've seen a lot of hype for this roller coaster in the past with reviews and different top 10 lists, but to me, it just looked like your standard average hypercoaster with a pretty good helix. And the beginning was as such. The first drop, although shorter than most B&M drops, was pretty comparable to most. It gave good airtime followed by 2 good camelbacks, but the second half is what made me love this roller coaster. Riders are thrown into an initially super tight, downward, 540-degree helix that feels like it absolutely sucks the soul out of you. The positive G-forces during this section leave nothing left to be desired, and it's followed by an even better ending. Most B&M hypercoasters end with pretty large camelbacks that give good floater airtime, but I don't know if the ones on Goliath are scaled a little bit smaller or the roller coaster is just heading into them at a much higher speed, but these airtime hills, specifically the last 3, gave such good ejector airtime in my opinion. We rode this roller coaster multiple times in a row as the line wasn't too long, and I could not get enough of that part. We were absolutely getting launched into our lap bars, and it was an amazing, amazing experience. I'm extremely glad that I underestimated Goliath in the first place because it was a more than welcome surprise on this trip. And staying at Six Flags Over Georgia for number 7 is Twisted Cyclone, a smaller scale RMC hybrid remake of the Cyclone, which originally stood in this plot of land. As I said before, I was very much anticipating these RMC coasters leading up to this Atlanta trip, and Twisted Cyclone lived up to its expectation as my favorite roller coaster at Six Flags Over Georgia. Just barely. Now, as we know, RMC hybrid coasters are focused on lots of aggressive airtime, kind of throwing riders around in a bunch of intense elements, and Twisted Cyclone is no exception. It has a very uniquely angled drop that kind of twists riders to one side, which totally took me off guard when I rode in the back row for the first time. Gave a great unique sensation of airtime before whipping into that sort of inverted cobra roll that follows. And next was my favorite element, the wave turn. What would normally provide a traditional airtime feeling of going upwards, but instead flipped at a 90-degree angle, was such an odd sensation, but such a fun element to experience. I sometimes forget with these smaller scale RMCs how aggressive and violent the airtime can be with the smaller profiled hills, and the rest of this ride absolutely delivers with that. Fitting one more inversion into the chaotic ending makes this roller coaster a little bit short, but an absolutely world-class RMC. This roller coaster is a true testament to the fact that it does not have to be a particularly large roller coaster in order for it to be world-class. Moving up to icy cold Canada was a roller coaster that was hot on the press for Canada's Wonderland this year, and it's AlpenFury. Now, I'm sorry to all my AlpenFury lovers out there because I don't think that I particularly liked this roller coaster maybe as much as some people in the community. Now, I do think it is a world-class, amazing roller coaster, but comparatively, there are a lot of roller coasters I think I like better. But let's talk about what AlpenFury does great, because it's an aggressive multi-launch roller coaster built by Premier Rides that utilizes the park's Wonder Mountain to perfection. It launches riders twice into the mountain, then upwards into a double inverting top hat, followed by a blast of fire when the train exits. These two launches happen so fast it leaves you absolutely breathless. And this is how launches should make you feel on roller coasters. The short amount of distance that this roller coaster has in order to launch it up that double inverting top hat is what makes these launches feel so punchy and so desirable. This ride then hits absolute top gear as it whips riders through different inversions that provide an ejector airtime feeling that Canada's Wonderland was missing for a long time in its coaster lineup. Initially, I was thinking that there was way too many inversions on this roller coaster and not enough airtime focused elements, but after riding, I can totally understand what they were going for with this different airtime feel than the traditional camelbacks on Behemoth and Leviathan. It was utterly aggressive the entire time, with a really cool, unique turnaround element where Extreme Skyflyer used to be. I was a big fan of that element and its uniqueness, before it does it all again, whipping riders through inversions all the way back behind the mountain to the coaster station. Now, I did come off this roller coaster thinking that it was over quite quickly, but it was exhilarating from start to finish. It seriously did not let up from any moment during the ride. It has all the forces that enthusiasts desire on roller coasters, and it's an absolute gem of a coaster for Canada's Wonderland's collection. Cracking into the top half of our list is Pantheon at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. This was definitely my most anticipated roller coaster at this park, and I was blessed with short enough lines that I was able to marathon it. And I am extremely grateful because, oh my goodness, what a great roller coaster this is. While I did think it would be the best coaster at this park, I did not expect it to reach the level that it did. It has a perfect variety of elements and it executes each one perfectly. It has great hang time between its first 0G roll after that launch and that long sustained 0G stall towards the end of the ride. It has fun laterals with those short side-to-side turns that it performs before going into the launch and 0G stall. It has speed and intensity with the launch and multiple other elements that provide amazing airtime. For starters, the drop off of that top hat is absolutely insane in the back row. With how steep it's profiled and the momentum from the front of the train, you get absolutely ejected out of your seat as you go down that drop and then pull into that tight turn next to the river. I was able to get a really cool sunset ride where at the top you were able to see the horizon with a beautiful sunset over the Virginia coastline. Coming right after that drop is a fantastic Outer Bank turn that also provides great airtime. But my favorite airtime moment comes at the focal point of this entire roller coaster, which is its launch and switch track. What makes this part even better is that they've sandwiched in a little bunny hill midway through the launch that you get to go over 3 times. The first launch, which is the slowest of the 3, gives a good amount of airtime over this hill, but it was the backwards launch that absolutely took my breath away. As the coaster quickly accelerates, it absolutely throws you over that airtime hill, giving one of the most insane pops of ejector airtime I think I've ever felt. I almost couldn't even focus on the spike that immediately follows because I was too busy catching my breath. Even as you descend and go over the hill for the 3rd time, I don't think it was as crazy as going over it backwards, but nonetheless an amazing element and part of the ride. After each re-ride, I was just anticipating that moment of the roller coaster. Overall, Pantheon is extremely well-rounded and its elements do exactly what they were designed for. Easily the best roller coaster at Busch Gardens Williamsburg in my opinion. At number 4 is Twisted Timbers at King's Dominion, barely missing out on my podium for my best new credits of this year. But do not let that fool you regarding how amazing this roller coaster actually is. Not only did I get a Zen ride on this, but I was able to marathon it at opening because nobody was at the back of the park, totally elevating my experience with this roller coaster. Twisted Timbers is another smaller scale RMC that was built on the old Hurler roller coaster, and once again it absolutely delivers in the insane, intense airtime and crazy elements that RMC usually has on their roller coasters. Now, it has a really well done rollover drop, although I do think I prefer traditional drops that provide airtime as opposed to these inverted ones. However, Twisted Timbers' drop does provide good hang time, and it is a fun sensation kind of dropping down a roller coaster while also upside down, so I can't knock it too much for that. After a small bunny hill and overbank turn, Twisted Timbers has back-to-back-to-back perfectly profiled airtime hills that the train roars over. It absolutely sends you flying out of your seat, and this is one of the top moments on this ride. It doesn't let up from there, having a bunch more twisted airtime hills, a couple of inversions, and another unique element that I want to draw attention to because I really enjoyed it. It's the weird second to last turn it does where it kind of goes up like a banked turn, then flips riders level, and then goes back into a banked turn, providing a weird, unique sensation of airtime. Another great moment on this roller coaster that just feels like it was meant to be jam-packed with a bunch of insane airtime and negative G-force elements. I got more than enough rides on this amazing RMC hybrid, and I think super, super highly of it after my visit to King's Dominion. And just like that, we are already at the podium for my top new credits of the year, and taking the bronze medal is VelociCoaster at Universal Studios Islands of Adventure. VelociCoaster could be described as the ideal coaster. It generally has all of the best elements that a coaster should have, and it does them perfectly. Whether it's speed, height, airtime, inversions, and especially theming. VelociCoaster is a completely immersive experience right when you enter the queue line, introducing riders to the Raptor enclosure at Jurassic Park, which now features a roller coaster allowing you to race the Velociraptors in this encampment. There's very realistic animatronics, pre-show videos, and a ton of rock work and other theming throughout the roller coaster itself. And this elevates the experience on this roller coaster, which by itself alone would already be a fantastic experience. It has 2 forceful launches, an abundance of airtime, and one of the craziest inversions on a roller coaster. The Mosasaurus roll provides an almost upside-down airtime sensation as it whips riders 360 degrees just above the water below. An amazing end to the ride. While this, among all the other elements on VelociCoaster, really do hit, for me, I just didn't feel the same level of aggression and surprise that some of these other roller coasters have given me. Yes, VelociCoaster is world class, has amazing theming and great forces, and that's why it's super high on this list. It just didn't reach the same wow factor that the next 2 roller coasters on this list did. Nonetheless though, if you're looking for a roller coaster that has all of the best ingredients to make a world-class experience, then VelociCoaster is that. Moving on to our runner-up of my favorite new credits of 2025 is a highly worthy RMC roller coaster that's quite out of place at the amusement park it's located at, and it's ArieForce One at Fun Spot Atlanta. Sandwiched in a park that consists of lower-level thrills, ArieForce One is one of the most aggressive roller coasters I've ever ridden. I've mentioned in previous videos how I love the out-of-control factor on roller coasters, and it truly is one of the strongest determining factors of how I rank rides that I've ridden. So, as you can expect, ArieForce One is held in an extremely high regard for me, providing some of the most aggressive airtime I've felt on any roller coaster. The first drop is great. Again, this is a larger scale RMC, so this drop is long and sustained, providing great airtime. There's a dive loop and a bunny hill before a really good 0G stall that has you hanging upside down for a really sustained amount of time. And the best thing about this roller coaster is that it just keeps getting better and better. The following outer bank turn is one of the strongest ones I've ever ridden on any roller coaster. Better than Pantheons, better than Steel Vengeances. I could not get enough of this element. The next part of this coaster I want to shine the light on comes after its double up and fast-paced 0G roll, and it's the extremely tight turn that it makes into another 0G roll before it turns the opposite way into its final set of airtime hills. The speed at which you take this turn, as with all the elements on this roller coaster, feels illegal. Me and my party were graying out every time the coaster took this turn, and the whip that the 0G rolls provided was amazing. And still, the best is yet to come, because the violent quad down that follows is one of my favorite elements on any roller coaster that I've ever ridden. I keep repeating the term aggressive airtime for this roller coaster, and I just don't know how else to describe it or what other term to use, because that is all this coaster is, and I absolutely love it. That quad down throws you so violently upward into your lap bar that I was hysterically laughing on the brake run. I couldn't believe how aggressive it was. What made the experience even better was that Fun Spot Atlanta was completely dead that day. In fact, we were the only people riding on the train. We were able to stay in the station, switch seats, re-ride again. It was just an amazing experience overall that cemented ArieForce One as one of my favorite roller coasters of all time. And now, Taking the title of my favorite new credit of 2025 at the number 1 position is none other than the amazing Pantheon at King's Dominion. I have been watching videos and reviews of this roller coaster ever since it debuted in 2010, desperately anticipating the one day that I would be able to ride it. In fact, my whole trip to Virginia this year was mostly inspired by my desire to ride this roller coaster, and wow, did it live up to all of its hype. There's really nowhere else to start but that first drop and turn. It's really hard to go wrong with a Giga Coaster drop, and Pantheon does it beautifully with a very steeply profiled drop that gives great airtime towards the back of the train. But the next part is where this roller coaster genuinely feels like it's trying to rip your face off, because following that immense 300-foot drop is a wide bank turn low to the ground that causes all of the blood to rush down to riders' legs, putting consciousness into question. I could not believe the sheer force that this part of the ride put on riders. It was unreal and unlike anything I've ever experienced before. In fact, after getting 16 rides on Pantheon in total, this drop and turn made me black out on 3 separate occasions. Now, this is somewhat of a common occurrence on this roller coaster. It is widely known that it was designed way too intense to begin with, even undergoing modifications to try and make it less intense, but it still now and again makes people black out, especially when you're at an amusement park, you're not eating too much throughout the day, it's hot, there's sun, not totally out of the question. But again, blacking out on a roller coaster is something I have never experienced before, and it was a bizarre, unreal feeling. Everything going black around you to then be momentarily flying sky high over an airtime hill felt so liberating, I genuinely don't know how to put it into words. It was unreal. This first section alone carries Pantheon above so many other roller coasters in my opinion, and it's not even halfway done yet. And thankfully, it just gets better and better with the following back-to-back whippy changes in direction that provide stellar moments of ejector airtime. What makes Pantheon feel so out of control, which I adore, is the fact that it stays super close to the ground with all of that speed from the towering drop. This causes the coaster train to take these snappy transitions at what feel like breakneck speeds, providing the most insane forces on riders. This coaster is full of aggressive non-stop force, be it negative or positive from start to finish, and it absolutely hauls into the final brake run, only then allowing you to catch your breath. But the best part of this all, the coaster was a complete walk-on the entire visit. Being able to get on and off the thing basically at free will felt like heaven. It has been a decent amount of time since a roller coaster made me feel that alive, rightfully crowning it as my favorite new credit of 2025. But 2026 now beckons upon us, a year full of opportunity to gain more credits and experience new parks. Which coasters are you looking forward to the most in the new year? And what was your favorite new credit you rode this year in 2025? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and have a blessed new year.